we want to be sure before he gets off or I get off, we take a couple more trips together. Joe and I do well on trips. Right, Joe?
Yes, we do. We have a good time. As long as there's someone to keep us under control.
Like Hannah. Yeah.
Yeah, like Hannah. Hannah keeps us under control.
Good job.
Yeah.
She keeps me under control too.
Here.
Regent Witten, Chair Stevens,
Here.
Vice Chair Martin, Secretary Fletcher, Regent Bogard,
Here.
Regent Green,
Here.
Regent Jackson,
Here.
Regent Rabinowitz. So we have on record our members. We do not have a quorum, but we may proceed without taking action.
Okay, what I would like to do is, Pam, if it's appropriate, is that we approve the minutes or so but maybe before we get in, Hannah, discussion of the agenda, I'd like to have at least, if we can, Wendy or Barry there. So if there's any questions and concerns in that regard. So I don't know how you want to do that, Madam Parliamentarian, but we're going to approve the minutes of the last meeting. So with that, that's an item we can do. So,
Well, we can't officially approve them with a quorum.
okay, all right.
So we will have to wait till our next meeting. I think we may have the full board at a Huron update prior to that, so we could do it then.
Okay. All right. The agenda, we'll cover the agenda first and Hannah, you want to go through that, please? Agenda item?
Yes. Yes, sir. And I will start out with the itinerary. As everyone knows, we are going to be having this meeting at West Kentucky Community and Technical College in Paducah. Please remember, as I struggle to do the time change, as Chair Stevens will point out, we will be on Central Time. We will start on 15th at 11 a.m. with an optional lunch and an optional college tour. Please know that these are optional. If you can't make it there in time, that's okay. We will officially begin business at 12 p.m. on Thursday. That evening, we will, of course, we will adjourn. We will let everyone go to the hotel. That evening, we will have a reception and dinner at the Country Club of Paducah. And then on Friday morning, we will begin at our regular time and have a community breakfast at the on campus there. And then we will start our board meeting at 8:30 on Friday morning.
All right.
Let me pull up the agenda for everyone to see. On Thursday, we will begin again, as I said, at noon. We will start with our open comment period. This is when members of the public are permitted to be in person and speak and address the board if they so wish. We will open with a college presentation from Dr. Reese. We will have approval of minutes. We will have a chair's report in which Chair Stevens and probably myself will deliver an update on our presidential search. And then we will move into the president's report. Dr. Ferguson will deliver that. And then we will begin. Again, this is just a draft agenda, so we anticipate that there may be a few more agenda items added between now and June 15th. We will have some agenda items under employment success from Vice President Shook. Lots of things going on in that area. Our learner success agenda items, we will have candidates for credentials to approve, and this is one of my favorite things we do every year for our students who graduate. We will have 2 approvals for Brittany and Richard, who will be graduating and leaving us in June. And then on Thursday afternoon, we will have our executive session and adjourn.
All right.
Then starting on Friday morning, again, we will have that community breakfast, and then we will move into additional agenda items. I think this is going to be the meat of the meeting, around
and
budget.
Hannah's would go through this. I'd like to have Dr. Ferguson address very briefly some of these items up there so that it is for the record. So, Larry, if you will, the first one up there is emergency crisis planning and if you just give us a very brief highlight of that.
You'd like to hear that right now, sir?
Yes, I would. Yes, sir.
Yes, we actually did a complete post-mortem with Dr. Handy and the rest of the presidents in regard to the incident that took place in Jefferson. They did an outstanding job with that situation, handled it very well, and that was from accounts from local law enforcement and others. We are actually going through a process now. We've spoke to all of our presidents trying to get an assessment of what they're spending on, emergency preparedness, including cameras, security. Many of them have relationships, such as I do in Ashland with the local police department, where we actually have an armed officer on campus. So we're taking an assessment there. Todd Gray also did some investigation for me. All of our colleges, either in 2022 or in 2023, have had active shooter exercises, or they are scheduled in 2023, and we hope to have one at the system office as well very soon. So we're taking all of our preparedness very seriously and making sure everyone is alert and on deck in the event that something would happen. I would inform this committee that after that event happened, actually at Jefferson, we had an event about a street over from one of our Bluegrass campuses. The Bluegrass folks, including Kofi Agapo, president there, handled it very well. There was nothing actually on campus, so we didn't have to lock down. But we're in a situation where it's not a matter of if something's going to happen, it's a matter of when. And so we're taking all the steps to ensure that everyone is where they should be in regard to preparedness.
Thank you. Next item is evaluation. Hannah, you have that item?
Yes, sir. So we will be asked very shortly, as in possibly right after this meeting, because I haven't had a chance to yet, but we will be asking a regent to serve in leading our annual evaluation of the board. As you know, this is a SACS requirement that the board evaluate not individual members, but the board as a whole every year. So we will have a regent who leads us through that process. We will send out a survey for regents to complete with the results to be shared at this meeting. And then if there's any action as a result of that survey, we will take it in June.
All right. In that regard is that we need a point of contact. And Patsy, I know you're on. You did last year. Would you be willing to do it again for us this coming year?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
All right. Okay. So Patsy's the chairman of that. Follow her directions. Don't let her have to call you 2 or 3 different times is what I'm saying. That's my advice is. So with that, all right. The next item is the audit, and we'll have some discussion on that. Larry, you also want to talk, you'll give some information in reference to the state at that, correct? You want to give us a briefing on that?
Yes, I'll give you a quick briefing. We've actually met with the state auditors just a few seconds ago. I was dealing with another request for information. We had a very in-depth conversation with what they're going to attempt to look at. We are awaiting from them basically a document that will outline their scope of work, the timeline of how long it will take them, and there is an associated cost. It will cost us $84 an hour for the state auditor's office to do this, including travel and other miscellaneous expenses. But that is where we are. Buddy Combs and others within his area are readily supplying them with documents, or they're reaching out to external audit who conducted those audits for us in the past to get those documents, which is what I was dealing with just a few moments ago. So the process is underway. We'll be able to provide more information once we have this scope of work document that they will be providing us. They actually have 2 weeks to do that, and we just met with them last Friday. So we do not expect that immediately, but it should come very soon.
Thank you. And then we'll have a presentation of personnel action. Acting Director Humphrey will give that. The next item is the financial report, and Buddy Combs will give that report. We're also the construction projects, an update on those, and Buddy is going to give that. But we're also I asked Dr. Ferguson to have the representative there from the system office that handles that. And we're looking at, as we go through, and I'll let everyone who wants to chime in on this, either Hannah or Larry, one about the question about why are we spending, I guess, money and renovation stuff projects when we don't have the Huron report. So one of you want to address that very quickly?
Hannah, I can say a couple of words and then you can add on or fill in appropriately. Andy Kasbar, who is our representative who handles those things for us, he will be, as the chair just said, be at our board meeting. We have received some questions in regards to that, but projects that the board is fully aware of because you voted on them moving forward, they have not stopped. There are ones that we had seen, of course, at Jefferson and at Bluegrass. Those are the larger projects. Everything else that is going through are really maintenance projects, so we have no choice but to do them. Things along roof replacements, a chiller going out, because we have a responsibility to be good stewards for the assets that we already have. Now, as the chair indicated, there could be, through their analysis of our facilities, there may be recommendations that come out or opportunities that come out from Huron about mergers or building closures or all those things. But at this point, again, we have a responsibility to maintain our facilities as we have them until some other decision is made. So that's why that projects are continuing and we're not stopping. Of course, as you all know, we'll be hearing these opportunities very soon around space utilization, and that could impact some future decisions. But that's the reason we haven't stopped. All
right, thank you. And the executive board has met and we have discussed, and that's Barry and Wendy and Buddy and Dr. Ferguson about the tuition. There is some concerns about raising the tuition, whether to or not to. I think the most you can do is $7 per hour over a 2-year period. The feeling that Buddy, at the last time we had a meeting a couple of weeks ago, he felt like we needed to take advantage of this. The $4. There's some discussion, but Dr. Ferguson is going to present prior to that some information from the finance people in reference to the colleges as well as the college presidents. Right, Dr. Ferguson?
Yes, sir. Now, of course, this is all within the purview of the board, and they will make a decision on whether or not we do increase tuition. But I will say that it is the consensus of our chief business officers and our presidents that we do. One thing I would hope that this committee and the board keep in consideration is the chair is right. The CPE approves any sort of tuition increase. It is $7 over the biennium of the budget. You can do no more than $4 per year. So if this year we did not do any increase, the most we could do the next year is $4. So you leave $3 there on the table indefinitely. You further dig that hole. So that is some of the reason. And just briefly, I won't go into a lot of it because you'll hear all of this later again. But some of the rationale for why we'd want to do that, there have been drastic increases in fixed cost. For me just here at Ashland, the expenses for my culinary and my welding programs have tripled just in materials to provide for those programs. We do anticipate that the board will want to give an increase to all employees. That's another discussion. And if they do, of course, there is a cost associated with that. But the bigger thing that we're concerned about why that would be necessary is we know there will be multiple opportunities presented from here on, but what we don't know is the cost of those opportunities. For example, I'm sure Regent Green can relate to this, to the comp and class study. There will be a cost, a necessary, important cost, but we don't know what that is. So that is the reason, the rationale, at least in a synopsis of why the presidents and the chief business officers would like to see a tuition increase. Again, that's entirely within the purview of the board, whether they do it or not.
Okay. Next item, Hannah.
Next item is the salary schedule. And we had a conversation just this morning about salary schedule. I want to clarify exactly what salary schedule is for some. I know at least some people are confused about it, including myself. And I know Brittany has not gone through this process before, so I will explain what the salary schedule is. The salary schedule is used to determine the minimum, the market, and maximum for each faculty rank or staff band on current market conditions. So this is what we approve each year. We don't always make changes to it, but this is different from the compensation, which of course is whether or not, in essence, you're going to give everyone a raise. The salary schedule is what we use to determine the position of rank and bands for faculty and staff. It's that salary range and how we can pay people within those certain classifications. Any questions on that?
Those, you can go ahead and say I was the one that raised the question because I was confused because I was trying to give the raise where it didn't belong. So, and I asked why are both of them on there because it's confusing to me. And Hannah bailed me out. She said, Mr. Chairman, it's confusing to me too. So that didn't make me feel so bad. So yeah, so that's why I guess it needs to be on there. If we had the status quo, it'd be the status quo is what I'm saying. But the next item is the one I think we're really want to look at. So
Chair Stevens, Regent
Yes.
Herding has a question.
Yes, Joe. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that we might hear information in the Huron retreat that might make a difference in those voting or in those areas as well. So
Absolutely.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you, Joe, for those comments. Hannah, the next one is the money, the one that I thought was at the proper place. Go ahead, Doug. And,
Yes.
And Larry, if you want to chime in, because it is the recommendation of Vice President Combs that, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, is that everyone within the system receives $1,000 raise for next school year, correct?
Yes, sir, that is true. And what that does, if you look at our employees that are earning, let's say $24,000, or some might be up below that, they would get a more significant percentage-wise raise with the $1,000 would go to their recurring salary. There was questions before about those who were making over 100,000. There are very few of those people, but they would receive less than a 1% raise. But it would be an equitable way to honor the commitment that the board has made to have ongoing, salary increases. This also would be comfortable enough that we wouldn't necessarily be messing with what's going to happen from the comp and class analysis. I know that the chief business officers are aware of this proposal and support it, as do the presidents. So that is what Vice President Combs had recommended to the executive committee. I support that. Again, it'll be up to the board what they would like to do.
Any questions about that? I know that we looked at several of them. I see Kimberly's hand up. We looked at various ranges. Go ahead, Kimberly.
I think it was me.
Joe.
That's
All
right.
right, okay, yes.
I was going to just ask, from our last board meeting, we didn't see $1,000 option on there to now. We're seeing it now. I was kind of wondering, I guess you kind of talked about a little bit of thought process, but I guess how did that originate? Did it start with the business officers, or how did that $1,000 come to be from March to here?
Well, actually, Regent Herding, it came from suggestions from some of the board members. I don't remember who, but that's where Mr. Combs got that. It was one of his takeaways from that March meeting to go back and work with his team to run the scenario for a flat $1,000 versus the other percentages. One of the bigger concerns is, again, what's going to come out in our comp and class study. The only thing we know right now, a preliminary number, is that they say 25% of our staff are not at market value, but the bigger question is more about the faculty, because there's probably a much larger percentage there that are not at that midpoint market value. So this shouldn't, alter those numbers. So that was probably part of the analysis behind that. I won't add any more because Mr. Combs, of course, is the expert. That's where it came from. Actually, requesting conversations to him through the board meeting last time.
And if you would, I know Larry has that spreadsheet. I have seen it with the 1%, 2%, the raise. If he could, put that in some type of format and send it to the board members, because I have seen that. And I must tell you, I started out when I first heard the $1,000, I said, I don't like that. And then I looked at the band of what the salaries were at the low and what the salaries were at the top. And we looked at people, and I think the information he provided us, he has a wide range of everybody that's making under $30,000, $50,000, 100,000, over 100,000, this and that is. And so, but we do have that information, Joe, and thank you for bringing it up. I will ask Dr. Ferguson sometime for Larry to send that at least to the policy and planning committee members, and those advisors, so they're aware of that. All right, next item, Hannah.
Okay, I put my hand up real quick. I just want to clarify, because I know that there are probably people watching. This would be the $1,000 would be recurring. It would so it would be added on to everyone's salary. In the past, the board has given non-recurring one-time
yes.
I don't know, not raise, but a reward or whatever you want to phrase it. But just for point of clarification, this would be recurring, meaning it's added on to everyone's salary from now on.
Yes, that is correct. That's my understanding, and that was what Buddy presented. These are reoccurring expenses, where the others were just $500 or $1,000 add on. This is added on to their salary from here, from going forth July 1st for ever how long till the salary schedule is adjusted. Yes, you are correct, Hannah.
Okay. Right. The next item after compensation will be the annual budget, which the board has to approve. And then we would, the board is responsible for approving key performance indicator targets associated with our strategic plan. Dr. Crouch will present those. And then the last item will be approving our 2024 meeting calendar.
Joe had a question. Joe?
Sorry, I got a lot of questions this meeting. For the annual budget, since we don't know what we're going to do exactly for the tuition and maybe even the compensation, how is that budget figured for that day when we make that decision that day of those changes?
Larry, you can answer that, because Buddy's already done it. Go ahead, Larry.
I can, sir. What we did is we instructed the chief business officers to plan on no tuition increase. If they were to see the tuition increase, that would, of course, be of a benefit to the college towards their expenditure budget. And then in regards to the increases, we had them plan on a $1,000, as Hannah just articulated, a recurring budget to each of those salaries. So that's what they're planning on. They had to do that because, as you know, the local colleges have to present their budgets to their board of directors. I do so with mine next week, and they will approve it. Ultimately, of course, they endorse it. They don't approve it. And ultimately, it's approved by the Board of Regents. So if actions were taken in the board meeting that would alter those, then there probably would be some modifications that would be required. But that is the scenario that they were instructed to work under: no tuition increase and a $1,000 recurring addition to all salaries.
Also, Joe, to answer your question, I think Buddy has, and Dr. Ferguson, you correct me if I'm wrong, with no increase in tuition, Buddy has designated 2 or 3 schools that are not going to meet that threshold. Now, with and including the $1,000 raises, with the tuition increase, I think all 16 colleges, if my memory serves me correctly, can meet that threshold. Is that correct, Dr. Ferguson?
Yes, sir, that is correct. I don't have those numbers directly in front of me, and I would have to search for them, but that is true. So if there is as they're planning, no tuition increase, some of them will have some difficulties dealing with that $1,000 increase to all salaries. They would have to cut expense budgets to make it.
And to be honest with the group, that's the reason that we put the $4 out there, so that we didn't have to, and we could give the $1,000, and everybody could meet that threshold in that regard. Does that answer your question, Joe?
Yes, thank you. That makes more sense.
All right. Well, good. I'm glad we. And Hannah, about the dates, would you about the September date? Would you want to make any comments about that at this time, or you want to hold on that and till we get closer to the June meeting? I'll let you.
I can go ahead and say a few things. So we had originally anticipated having our September meeting at Hopkinsville Community College. However, with everything going on, including the presidential search and the Huron study, of course, Huron will not conclude in June. Part of the recommendation or opportunities around compensation and classification will be in September. With all of that going on, we are considering having the September board meeting at the system office. So we will let everyone know about that as soon as we can. I know Hopkinsville is eager to start planning, but with everything going on, it may just be easier for everyone to be there.
Yeah, man, we'll try to make that decision sometime by the middle of May, right, Hannah? We'll try so that Hopkinsville knows far enough in advance is in that regard. All right.
Sure.
Any other Hannah has an announcement, I think, but any other comments or questions in reference to the agenda? The last item is election of officers, and then the most famous part of I like the agenda, and Pam knows what it is the adjournment. So we get to go home. So in that regard, but anybody else have any questions in reference to the agenda? And then I think Kimberly has a question. Yes, ma'am. Or Joe, one.
Regent Harding.
Sorry, it's Joe again.
Kimberly, you got to say something before we get off now, okay? Joe, go ahead.
Just one quick thing. I've been seeing a lot of positive press about the Pathfinder Awards given to local teachers or counselors. I've been seeing news articles about that. Do you know if anyone's going to give an update or a review, or maybe a slide deck of those winners maybe at the board meeting? I don't know if that falls under Chancellor or something, but it'd be nice to see that positive stuff on the agenda.
Joe, we could certainly check on that. It actually falls under our marketing division, and currently that does report to the Chancellor. So
okay.
Hannah or Pam or I can check with Terry Giltner, and we can get an update.
Okay.
And I believe that I want to say that information from Chancellor Williams about that initiative was actually going to be stated in the March meeting, but because it was such a full agenda, we ended up canceling it at the last minute. It was still in the materials, but there wasn't a presentation made. But I'm sure that we can make sure that that's included this time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Before we get to the announcement, and I've called on her twice, she's not said anything. Kimberly, you want to say anything? Sorry.
I don't have any comments, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. With that is, and Hannah has the announcement, and then we will call for a motion or consensus to adjourn. Hannah, go ahead.
Sure. So this new business is regarding the search for our next president. Chair Stevens, Pam, and I met with our search consultants, AGB. Specifically, our consultants are Janice Fitzgerald and Jim McCormick. They have been wonderful so far and very responsive and helpful. So it's been a good experience, and I think that everyone's going to be really pleased with their assistance. Chair Stevens and I have had some conversations, and he has determined, working with AGB, who should serve on the search committee for the search. So I will announce those names now. It will be he will serve as chair. Brianna Witten will co-chair. Joe Herdink will serve on the committee, as will Keith Hamilton, Barry, and Wendy. And we will have Brittany serve. I know that her term ends in June, but we hope that if this continues past June, Brittany would be willing to still participate in this very important initiative. And then we will also have Dr. Alyssa Young from Hopkinsville to serve on the committee. And we are currently working on adding another college president the committee so that there are two. We have not found that second one yet. Of course, some of them may be interested in running. So I will secure that second name of our college president and report that as soon as I can.
Did you put Keith on there? Did I hear you mention Keith? You did. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Pam, you have a question?
Not a question so much as a comment. I wanted to note for the record that Dr. Ferguson logged off as we began to talk about the search committee.
Thank you.
And we would, you may, I'll let you, Hannah, before we leave, talk a little bit to the full group here about their request for me to about selecting this committee and some of the things that they really wanted to do, and some of the things that we kind of announced the committee. Now the committee needs to start the work, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
Go ahead.
As James Lee has said, he wants this to be done yesterday. So we are going to, I actually just received a draft timeline from the consultants earlier today. We're looking at that and we'll send it out to the committee shortly. We hope to have our first search committee meeting either next week or the following week. And immediately the first task of the committee will be to determine the job qualifications and the profile of the next president. I know there has already been some conversation, as there was at our meeting in March, around qualifications, specifically a terminal degree. So the committee will be tackling that at its first committee meeting, and because we can't move forward until we know what the will is of the committee. If our policy does have to be changed around that, that would be something that the full board would vote on. Of course, if the committee wants to leave the policy alone, then there will be no action required, and we'll move forward with our policy as it stands.
And tell them a little bit about because they did ask the makeup of the committee, what they asked for, and so I really, absolutely.
So in speaking with AGB, who of course has done presidential searches hundreds and hundreds of times, if not thousands, they recommended a small committee. So the committee total will be 9 people. It's good to have an odd number in case there's a vote. Well, there of course will be a vote, but smaller committee, but they do also recognize the extreme stakeholder input. So AGB will be working with Pam and I to either develop surveys or do personal phone calls, outreach. We've already created a list of people that we will need input from. This includes, for instance, our 16 college presidents, faculty. I always get faculty senate, Pam.
Yes, faculty senate,
yes, sorry.
And the academic council, which are the chief
academic council. Yes, it may include input from external stakeholders such as CPE or the chamber, legislators. Everyone who has an interest in this search.
We will freeze. So Hannah, I will take up where Hannah left off. So they will be doing surveys of all there. She's back.
Yeah, I dropped. So the surveys will go to the committee for them to use in their decision making. And this will be a closed search until we get to ideally 3 candidates. At which point the committee would send those candidates on to the full board, or they could possibly look at the candidates, make one decision and recommend that to the full board. So again, this will be a closed search that is necessary to get your top tier candidates to apply, some of whom may have other, jobs, hopefully right now. And again, I just want to emphasize that although this search committee is small and consists of regents and 2 college presidents, there will be ample opportunity for input from all the stakeholders.
Yeah, I see Wendy's joined us. Just repeat again who's on the committee so that I want to make sure that everybody understands that is going forth. Okay, forward.
Sure. It is Brianna, who will serve as co-chair with Chair Stevens, Joe, Keith, James Lee, Barry, Wendy, Brianna, Brittany, and Dr. Young as the college president, and I will be working to add 1 more college president in the coming days.
Okay.
And I would like to note that we do now have a quorum. Even though we are done, we do have a quorum now.
I'm so sorry. I have server issues today, and I couldn't get it to all reset at the same time to get on. I could get to the waiting room and not get admitted. As soon as I tried to admit, it dropped me. So sorry, but I think we finally got everything all the way down to the hub reset. So we should be good.
And also Regent Martin is on here as well.
Oh, okay. Well, Pam, or does anyone, I think.
Yes,
Joe, you have another question? I thought Joe, you have 1 more question except for adjournment. Go ahead.
Okay, this is the real last one. Do you want to go ahead and approve the minutes since you weren't able to do that earlier?
Yes,
Since we have a
Joe.
quorum
I
now.
have a question too.
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
do have a question. So in that list that you just read back through, you mentioned Brianna twice.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did
So
not-
Brianna, James Lee, Joe, Keith, Barry, me, Brittany, Dr. Young, and 1 more president.
Mm-hmm.
So 9.
9, correct.
Okay. I thought I
Yes.
heard you say 9. Okay. I just wanted to make
Yep.
sure.
9.
Thank you very much.
Mhm.
And they, I will be honest with you, they recommended, and so we want to be transparent. Their recommendation was that, and we go ahead and tell Hannah that if we need to select as co-chairman 1 of the faculty or staff people, so that everybody's inclusion in that, and that's what I did. I reached out to Keith today and to ask him personally, and Brianna to ask her personally, and as well as Joe. To serve on the committee. So yes, I did. I think it's a great committee. We have a lot of work to do. As Hannah said, when they asked me when you want to start the search, and that was Tuesday, and I said, why didn't you start it last Monday? And they kind of backed up, and they sent. They're willing to work with us, but the committee is going to have a lot of, I guess, decisions and suggestions to make and I think that I tried to remind them they work for us. So, they present a timeline, what is reasonable, but we want to present our timeline too. So we'll meet somewhere in the middle, I am assuming, with that. So, but we do need to prove the minutes of the last meeting. So Joe made that motion. And can we do that by consensus, Pam, or raise your hand?
Yes, we can. If there is no objection, then they are approved.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I know that Barry, I don't want to take anybody longer than that, but Barry and Wendy, we went through the agenda. You see those. Dr. Ferguson, in reference to the audit, I will say that he is going to give a report on safety. In that regard, Pam or Hannah explained the salaries. I'm sure Barry and Wendy already know this, and I'm the only board member that did not understand this all. Salary schedule and compression. I had it in the wrong place. So if you want to, one of you or Pam, very quickly explain that.
Sure. So there's 2 separate items annually in June that the board looks at. One is compensation, and the other one is the salary schedule. The salary schedule is that minimum, market, and maximum that are in the ranks and bands, ranks applying to faculty, bands applying to staff. The board approves those or at least looks at them annually. They don't necessarily have to make any changes to them, but that indicates what we can hire new employees in at those levels. And so I know Mr. Combs told me earlier today that there were changes made to those in 2022 and 2017. And as Regent Herding pointed out, there may be recommendations coming from here on about those salary schedules for employees, but we will at least take a look at them and see if any action needs to be taken in June. And then the compensation, the raise to employees is considered by the board.
Yeah, we do not expect any changes in those at this time. And if we did, we would let you know ahead of time. Now, the other one about the salary, and I think that Wendy and Barry have already heard that, is that the $1,000 for all the employees. And I did ask Dr. Ferguson to send, you remember Buddy gave us all the charts or so. I asked Dr. Ferguson to send those out to the board members prior to the June meeting so they were aware of that. Any other questions that anybody has? If Wendy or Barry want to ask any questions, if not, we'll motion to adjourn.
No, I think it's pretty clear. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay. With that is, and Barry and Wendy and Joe and Brianna, and I'll see you all sometime, hopefully in the next couple of weeks by video, and we will have the consultants on the search firm, and we'll start working hard.
Since this is your favorite part, I don't want to get it all messed up. We had a motion, but no second, and we need to say by consensus.
Consensus.
We need a second.
Second.
Well, we need a
Okay.
Joe seconded.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Hey, Pam.